Hello everyone and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, The Lost Planeswalker. And today I'm going to do a set review of some of the amazing cards from the Brothers War. I've selected 5 cards from each color, multicolor and colorless cards. This set is filled with lots of history, some amazing and gigantic creatures. Mirel, Shield of Argive, 3 and a white, legendary creature, human soldier. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. When Mirel, Shield of Argive attacks, create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control. Its ability to pump out those soldiers turn after turn is gonna create more tokens than you know what to do with. Dakacia's Welcome, 2 and a white, enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures with mana value 3 or less enters battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers once each turn. I know all white players are happy to see this, and this is why it's number 2 on my list. Number 3, we have Platoon Dispenser. 5 colorless artifact creature construct. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more other creatures, draw a card. 3 and a white. Create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. Unearth, 2 white. If you're playing soldier or artifact synergy, I think it's going to be very powerful. Loran of the Third Path, 2 and a white, legendary creature, human artificer. Vigilance. When Loran of the Third Path enters battlefield, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. Tap Loran of the Third Path. You and target opponent each draw a card. Loran of the Third Path certainly is a strong card, allowing you to destroy an artifact and enchantment when it enters the battlefield. But I think the true power of this card is abusing its first ability. If you can exile and return Loran of the Third Path to the battlefield, I think you're going to get a lot more value as a removal card, with the added benefit of drawing cards. Steel Seraph, 6 mana, artifact creature angel. Flying. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, target creature you control gains your choice of flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. You can also prototype this card for 1 white. This is a card that I think is good in the beginning or later in the game, especially its ability to give a creature you control flying, vigilance, or lifelink can really affect the dynamics of a game. In the number 1 spot for blue, we have Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim. 3 blue, legendary planeswalker, Teferi. When you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim. 0, draw a card. -2, create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. -12, target opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to their hand, then shuffles each non-land permanent they control into their owner's library. Teferi comes in with 4 loyalty counters. There's lots of ways in blue to draw cards, and you should be able to quickly get Teferi all the way up to his -12 ability and take control of the game. 1 with the Multiverse, 6 blue, enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand or the top of your library without paying its mana cost. 1 with the Multiverse, while sounding like an incredibly powerful card, is. Its ability to play lands and cast spells from the top of your library allows you to take advantage of what's on top of your library as well as what's in your hand. Drafna, Founder of Latnam, 1 and a blue, legendary creature, human artificer advisor. For 1 and a blue, return target artifact you control to its owner's hand. 3, and tap, copy target artifact spell you control. Building decks around this card is a little different than I think other blue artifact commanders. The fact that you can return artifacts you control to your hand will allow you to replay them and get those enter the battlefield effects multiple times. For just 3 mana, you can copy any target artifact spell you control, whether that's a creature or a powerful artifact. This ability seems too good to be true. Arcane Proxy, 7 mana, artifact creature wizard. When Arcane Proxy enters the battlefield, if you cast it, exile target instant or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to Arcane Proxy's power from your graveyard. Copy that card. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. For 1 blue, you can prototype this card as a 2/1 instead of a 4/3. While the initial value of this card isn't clear right off the bat, being able to play spells for free can be very powerful. Teresian Mindbreaker, 7 mana, artifact creature Juggernaut. When Teresian Mindbreaker attacks, defending player mills half their library rounded up. Unearth for 1 blue blue blue. This card is definitely worth 7 mana, allowing you to mill your opponent's library every time this attacks, and being able to return it will make this card very powerful and sought out in all mill decks. Our number 1 pick for black is Gix Yawgmoth Praetor, 1 black black. Legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, they draw a card. 4 black black black. Discard X cards. Exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. Gix, being an incredibly strong Phyrexian Praetor, can allow you to do some amazing things. Black is no stranger to paying life to draw cards, and this is another one to add to your collection. Its second ability, while not as strong as its first, can allow you to pitch a hand full of useless cards in order to play things off the top of your opponent's library for free. Phyrexian Fleshgorger, 7 mana, artifact creature, Phyrexian Worm. Menace, lifelink, ward, pay life equal to Phyrexian Fleshgorger's power. You can prototype this for 1 black black as a 3/3, or cast it as a 7/5 for 7 mana. This card, in my opinion, is good in either its 3 or 7 cost states. Menace and lifelink are both very powerful abilities, almost guaranteeing you to gain life every time you swing. And this ward ability, maybe not as threatening in commander games where your life total is 40, in other formats like Standard, Modern, and Pioneer, losing 7 of your 20 life can be very impactful. Misery's Shadow, 1 and a black. Creature, Shade. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. 1 generic mana, Misery's Shadow gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Exiling creatures is one of the most powerful things you can do, especially for graveyard decks. For just 1 mana, you can at instant speed pump this creature in order to block or when you're swinging in for the kill. Misery's Shadow is a card you shouldn't sleep on. Transmigrant Altar, 3 generic mana, artifact. For a black and tap, sacrifice a creature and add 3 generic mana. For 2 and tap, sacrifice a creature. Create a 3/3 colorless zombie artifact creature token. Activate only as a sorcery. While maybe not as powerful as the other altars, I see this card being especially powerful in zombie decks, where sacking creatures is just part of the strategy. And our last black card is Transmigrant Crown, for 2 generic mana. Artifact Equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. When equipped creature dies, draw a card. Equip for 2 or 1 black. This card, while it's not nearly as powerful as Skullclamp, this card is going to generate a decent amount of card draw, and for 1 black mana to equip, it seems like a very powerful equipment. Our number 1 card for red is Draconic Destiny, 1 red. Enchantment Aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has flying, haste, and 1, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's a dragon in addition to its other types. When enchanted creature dies, return Draconic Destiny to its owner's hand. There's 2 reasons I think this card is incredibly powerful. The first reason I think this card is incredibly powerful is its ability to return to your hand when target creature dies. But the more powerful of the 2 abilities, I believe, is the generic mana pump, which allows you to create incredibly large creatures. Next, we have Visions of Phyrexia, 2 red enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't play a card from exile this turn, create a tapped Power Stone token. Red generally generates card draw through exiling cards that they can play at the beginning of their turns. But if you don't end up casting the card, you're still going to get a tapped Power Stone. You can use that mana in activated abilities, like Draconic Destiny, to be able to pump your creatures. Mechanized Warfare, 1 red enchantment. If a red or artifact source you control would deal damage to an opponent, or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. There's already a lot of 1 damage synergy, and this seems like a great card to add to that. Being able to ping your opponents for an additional damage, while not a lot, will end up adding up over time. Number 4 for red, we have Over the Top, 5 Red Red, Sorcery. Each player reveals a number of cards from the top of their library equal to the number of non-land permanents they control. Puts all permanent cards they revealed this way onto the battlefield, and puts the rest into their graveyard. Some red decks are primarily permanent based, and this can be incredibly powerful in decks that create tokens, like treasures. The only criteria is that it's a non-land permanent, so if you have 10 treasures, you're able to put 10 permanents from the top of your library onto the battlefield, very quickly turning the tide of the game. The last card for red is Feldon Ronom Excavator, 1 in a red. Legendary creature, Human Artificer. Haste. Feldon Ronon Excavator can't block. When Feldon is dealt damage, exile that many cards from the top of your library. Choose one of them. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Just like in Visions of Phyrexia, Feldon exiles cards that you can play. This lets you play it on your next turn, which allows you to manage your mana better in preparation for casting spells. My top choice for green is Titania, Voice of Gaia. 1 green. Legendary creature, Elemental. Reach. Whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain 2 life. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more land cards in your graveyard, and you both own and control Titania, Voice of Gaia, and a land named Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, exile them and meld them into Titania, Gaia Incarnate. Personally, I think green was the most underpowered color in this set. Titania, still a great card, is able to generate you lots of life, using cards like Crucible of Worlds, and will allow you to replay cards from your graveyard. Awaken the Woods, X green. Sorcery. Create X 1/1 green forest dryad land creature tokens. Is one of the most expensive cards in the set for a reason. Not only does it create green forest dryad creature tokens, but it also creates land creature tokens. Any deck that plays landfall synergies is going to want to include this card in it. Titania's Command, 4 green. Sorcery. Choose 2. Exile target player's graveyard. You gain 1 life for each card exiled this way. Search your library for up to 2 land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Create 2 2/2 green bear creature tokens. Or put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. This card allows for a lot of flexibility. If you need creatures, you can make creatures. If you want to gain life, you can gain life. If you want to search for lands, you can search for lands. And I think the most powerful is putting 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Can really beef up the board. Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia, 2 green. Legendary creature, Elf Druid Scout. Tap to add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of a creature or creature card. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Gwenna, Eye of Gaia, and untap it. Any deck that plays large creatures, especially green, is going to benefit greatly by having this card included. Argoth, Sanctum of Nature. Land. Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. Tap it to add a green mana, or 2 green, tap it to create a 2/2 green bear creature token, then mill 3 cards. Activate only as a sorcery. This is the other half of Titania, and its second ability will allow you to quickly fill up your graveyard with lands in order to merge the two. Looking at the multicolored cards, the first one on the list is Urza, Lord Protector, 1 white-blue. Legendary creature, Human Artificer. Artifact, instant, and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. 7 mana. If you both own and control Urza, Lord Protector, and an artifact named the Mightstone and Weakstone, exile them and meld them into Urza Planeswalker. Activate only as a sorcery. While merging Urza into a Planeswalker is incredibly powerful, his static ability of making artifacts, instant, and sorcery spells 1 less to cast is an incredibly powerful ability. Mishra, claimed by Gix, 2 black-red. Legendary creature, Phyrexian Human Artificer. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the number of attacking creatures. If Mishra, claimed by Gix, and a card named Phyrexian Dragon Engine are attacking, and you both own and control them, exile them and meld into Mishra, lost to Phyrexia. It enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. Just like Titania and Urza, Mishra's meld ability is incredibly powerful. Mishra's unmelded side, though, is incredibly powerful as well. Mishra, claimed by Gix, is going to want to swing into your opponents with large board states. The more creatures you have, the more life your opponents will lose, and the more life you will gain. Takesha, Dig Site Mentor. 1, white, green, blue. Legendary creature, Human Artificer. Creatures you control have vigilance and tap to surveil 1. For 2, green, green, white, white, and blue, blue. Exile Takesha Dig Site Mentor from your graveyard. Return any number of target artifact cards with total mana value 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. While Takesha's second ability sure does cost a lot of mana, I think her first one is going to be much more powerful. Creating a board with lots of tokens will let you surveil through your graveyard, not only placing cards you want in there, but putting cards you want right on top. Deathbloom Ritualist. 3, black, green. Creature, Elf Warlock. Tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. This is going to fit into any graveyard deck, creating lots of mana to cast spells from your graveyard or from your hand. Yoshin Dissident. Green and a white. Creature, Human Artificer. Whenever an artifact enters a battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. I think this card is going to be for players who want a challenge. Green and white, while having a lot of artifacts in them, aren't your typical artifact colors. Whether it's playing artifacts from your hand or creating creature tokens, Yoshin Dissident is going to place a lot of +1/+1 counters on creatures. Portal to Phyrexia. 9 mana. Artifact. When Portal to Phyrexia enters a battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. At the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. This card is definitely worth 9 mana. Not only does it make your opponents sacrifice 3 creatures each, it allows you to pull a card from any graveyard and put it onto your battlefield. Stasis Coffin. 3 mana. Legendary artifact. For 2, tap. Exile Stasis Coffin. You gain protection from everything until your next turn. If you need that one more turn in order to stay in the game, the Stasis Coffin will help you out. Liberator, Urza Battlethop, 3 mana. Legendary artifact creature, Thopter. Flash, flying. You may cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than the Liberator, Urza Battlethopter's power, put a +1/+1 counter on Liberator. This is a great all-around card, allowing you to play your colorless and artifact spells at instant speed anytime. And if you can get this card out early, you can power it up, making it a large threat by the end of the game. Cityscape Leveler. 8 mana. Artifact creature construct. Trample. When you cast a spell, and whenever Cityscape Leveler attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token. Unearth for 8. This card is a massive threat, allowing your opponent to not only destroy a creature when it's cast, but whenever it attacks. And if you need to swing in for that final kill, unearthing it for 8 will surely do the job. The Stone Brain. 2 mana. Legendary artifact. 2, tap, exile the Stone Brain. Choose a card name. Search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 copies with that name, and exile them. That player shuffles, then draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way. Activate only as a sorcery. This card is incredibly powerful, especially playing against decks that combo off using specific cards. Thank you all for sticking around and watching my video. These are cards I personally think will be great, but if you have a card from the set you think is amazing, please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.